Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Spokane Plan Commission hearing for Wednesday, June 26th, 2024. Today we have one item coming before us. And before we do that, we will have Ryan conduct roll call, please.
Greg Francis.
Here.
Ryan Patterson.
Here.
Jesse Bank.
Here.
Sandra Nepperud is absent. Carol Shook.
Here.
Tim Williams.
Here.
David Edwards.
Here.
Amber Lenhart.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And before we begin, I will read our hearing procedures. The following rules of decorum will be followed by the public and observed and adhered to during all Plan Commission hearings. Please silence your cell phones when entering council chambers. No clapping, cheering, or booing. No public outbursts. The president does impose time limits on individual comments. We will have 3 minutes of public comment per individual. If a group of 10 or more, and I don't think we have that in place today, signs up, we can have them testify in a single group. All persons and/or commission members shall wait to be recognized by the president before speaking. Persons testifying are asked to avoid repetition and limit comments to the specific project and code compliance. Each speaker shall follow all instructions from the president so that their remarks may be heard, understood, and recorded. All comments to the Plan Commission shall be directed to the secretary to be appropriately entered into the public record. This includes oral, written, and email comments. No modes of expression not provided by these rules, including but not limited to demonstrations, banners, applause, profanity, vulgar language, or personal insults will be permitted. In the event such disorders persist, the president may require the removal of the instigators, recess, or adjourn the meeting. Everybody be good. Okay, with that, we will move on to our first and only hearing item, South Logan TOD implementation with Casey Downey. Welcome, Casey.
Good afternoon, Plan Commission. As was just said, we are here to talk about South Logan TOD implementation. But first, I wanted to ground the conversation, just kind of take a step back and look at what is transit-oriented development, since that's really what we're trying to implement and we're focusing on. So transit-oriented development, or TOD, is a model for planning development with a diversity of land uses that are located along pedestrian-oriented networks near transit. It's basically bringing people to an area with transit so they can benefit from transit, and transit can benefit from having people around. In the South Logan area, the transit that we're talking about is the City Line. The City Line opened last summer, and there are 3 stops within the South Logan area. The key characteristics of TOD include active street frontages, having those daily needs, goods, services, also having housing, again, bringing people to the area, and encouraging pedestrian activity. With that in mind, the South Logan TOD sub-area became a focus of us looking at how to implement transit-oriented development. The South Logan TOD plan was adopted by resolution by City Council on January 29th of this year. The final sub-area plan provides a framework with goals, policies, and particularly important for tonight is recommendations for how to meet the envisioned future for the South Logan sub-area. A final environmental impact statement was also adopted that looked at the environmental impact of the overall sub-area and the envisioned preferred alternative of development in the area. With implementing the South Logan TOD plan, the first phase is code changes. So we are here tonight, again, on looking at the code changes. There is a second phase of implementation, which is changing the land use and zones within the South Logan sub-area. That is a separate process. It's being processed as part of the 2023-2024 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Cycle docket. So you'll be hearing more about that as we move along with the Comprehensive Plan amendments. The proposal for implementation includes area-specific and city-wide code changes. Area-specific is the Hamilton Form-Based Code and the Planned Action Ordinance. This affects only the South Logan sub-area. The citywide code proposals include changes to the center and corridor code, height and height transitions, and open space requirements within our higher intensity residential zones. Again, this is citywide. The proposal is to implement these regulations citywide to support transit-oriented development and pedestrian-oriented development within the area, and also to just have consistency throughout Spokane. So we're not having some very specific regulations in one area and not elsewhere. We want to have the benefits of those changes throughout the city. As we are drafting the code amendments, we looked at the engagement that occurred during the South Logan TOD planning process. Now, that was a 20-month planning process that involved a community survey, a 3-day planning studio, multiple workshops, a lot of engagement, and that fed into the recommendations of the plan, which then we took those recommendations and drafted the proposals. Once we had drafts, we did engagement specific to those draft proposals. And that engagement included reaching out to neighborhood council, plan commission workshops. We did a number of tabling opportunities. We had a virtual information session, and we also did some coffee chat pop-ups within the area. Outside of direct events, we also have multiple newsletters that we use to tell people about the proposals. We leveraged the city's web pages and social media to try and just get the word out there so people knew about the proposals. Okay, so we will first talk about the area-specific text amendments. Again, these apply only within the South Logan sub-area. That sub-area, there's a map within the staff report. It's around the Gonzaga area, Hamilton, goes up to Indiana, south to the river, just to kind of have a frame of reference where we're talking about. The area-specific text amendments, again, are the Planned Action Ordinance and Hamilton Form-Based Code. And first, we'll discuss the Planned Action Ordinance. Planned actions allow governments to review potential impacts of development within a geographic area during the planning process. So when we did the South Logan TOD plan, we did an environmental review, that final environmental impact statement, and we looked at the overall vision for the entire area. This means that individual projects that come in don't necessarily need to do their own environmental review if the planned action ordinance is adopted. So again, we're looking at the big picture of potential impacts and mitigation rather than on a project-by-project basis. So we are leveraging that final environmental impact statement for environmental review, and development that is occurring in that area doesn't need to submit SEPA, separate State Environmental Protection Act review, which can reduce the amount of time it takes to go through development, can reduce costs, just kind of speed up the development that we envision in the area. There are some exceptions to the planned action ordinance. Anything within the shoreline still needs to go through separate environmental review, and drive-throughs were identified as an undesirable use within the area, so those do not get that expedited process.
Casey? So with shoreline, how far back from the shoreline does that include?
I think that's actually established by a map. I'm not sure if there's a fixed distance. There may be, but I'm not certain about that. We do have a map that shows where that is, though.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I was trying to think of if there's a consistency, and I can't visualize a consistency. We do have it mapped and documented, so any project knows that they're within the shoreline area and would need that separate review.
Is that any part of a parcel within that shoreline would be still subject to SEPA?
I believe it's development that is within the shoreline buffer. So if they're outside of it, I believe they have a different process.
Okay.
The second area-specific proposal is adjustments to the Hamilton Form-Based Code. I missed the other clicker. Come on. There we go. A form-based code is a code that focuses on the form of the built environment within an area, how buildings interact with the street, and focus on creating an activated street front, just having an aesthetic look and built environment within the area. The Hamilton Form-Based Code was established around 2015, and it is a pilot form-based code in the city. It is the only form-based code that currently exists within the city, and as pilot programs tend to lend themselves to, there's some adjustments that we've identified as need to be made to help make the form-based code function as it's intended. So during the South Logan TOD plan process, we identified that the existing Hamilton form-based code is a bit confusing, has a bit too many regulations, and that could be streamlined and simplified in order to be used better. So some of those changes that we are making that are recommended in the South Logan TOD plan is really simplifying just the regulations. So currently there are 4 different zones within the Hamilton form-based code. It is a relatively small area of the city, so there's a lot of variety within a few blocks. So the proposal is to consolidate to one zone, that is the context area 1, and also to add a small portion of the CA1 zone to the southern portion of South Logan. This was to create kind of a mini downtown that was envisioned during the planning process. There are also 4 different street types. Again, not a lot of blocks, a lot of variety within a short area. So the proposal is to instead use shop front designations. We've identified key intersections within the area, and those shop front designations get essentially bonuses to help activate those street frontages as envisioned by the plan. Other adjustments to the Hamilton form-based code, basically just streamlining for greater consistency throughout the area, simplifying and reorganizing the code. It doesn't necessarily look like other portions of our code. So if someone's used to dealing with other parts of our code and they look at this, it's different, it takes longer to interpret, so just making it consistent so it's easier to use. We're also supporting transit-oriented development and pedestrian-oriented infrastructure by making sure that drive-throughs are not permitted, removing minimum parking requirements, increasing heights, so 75 feet for the CA1 and 150 for those shop front designations. It is currently 66 feet is the height maximum, and working on maximum setbacks and just really focusing on that built form as it interacts with sidewalks in the street. Now on to the citywide text amendments. Again, this applies citywide for all areas of the city that have the pertinent zones that are being affected. Those include changes to our higher intensity residential zones, the allowed heights, and our center and corridor zone. And we will start with height proposals. We've been showing the heights in different tables during our presentation, so this is just consolidating the different heights that we've discussed so you can have a bigger picture of the proposal. So for our higher intensity residential zones, RMF and RHD currently have the same maximum height as our lower intensity residential zones. However, these zones are anticipated to have different built forms than our lower intensity residential zones. So the proposal is to increase those to reflect the type of a development that we anticipate. So in residential multifamily, proposing going up to 55 feet, and in residential high density going up to 75 feet. In order for that 75 feet to be permitted, we're also making an adjustment. Currently, the code lists out a few different heights that are permitted throughout the city, and 70 feet is allowed. We're just bumping that to 75 feet to reflect recommendations in the South Logan plan to implement a 75-foot height limit that fits the building plates better, so 75 feet allows for a better building to make it more feasible. Within our center and corridor zoning, we're also adjusting the heights. For neighborhood centers, currently they're 40 feet. The proposal is to go to 55 feet. For district centers or corridors, going from 55 feet or 40 feet in CC4 to 75 feet or 55 feet in CC4. And an employment center, we're just adjusting that 70 to 75 feet. In order to make the new heights more feasible to actually build, we're also proposing adjustments to the height transitions adjacent to R1 and R2 zones. That's our lower intensity residential zones, residential 1 and residential 2. These height transitions do not apply next to other zones. So within center and corridor, and RMF, RHD, and commercial next to these zones, the proposal is to go to a 2-to-1 ratio or a 60-degree angle. That 2-to-1 ratio means you get 2 additional feet of height for every 1 additional foot you are away from the property line. Currently, that ratio is 1-to-2, so we're flipping it just to make those heights more feasible to actually reach. RMF, RHD, and commercial have a height transition of 40 feet, so 40 feet away from that property line is where that transition is required. For center and corridor, where we anticipate more intensity, it is 150 feet where that transition is required. more with the center and corridor proposals. Maybe? There we go. So currently, there is an interim ordinance on the books for center and corridor zoning. This was part of the Building Opportunity and Choices for All interim ordinance that was adopted a little bit ago. I can't remember what year.
November of 2024.
Thank you very much.
2023. Sorry.
2023.
Thank you.
We don't know dates here. So in 2023, the interim ordinance was passed, and we've been extending the center and corridor regulations just as we're working on this so we can get something permanent in place. That interim ordinance actually expires in 2 days on June 28th. With the process that we're going with this, a couple of months, these regulations, if approved, would go into effect. So we're not anticipating too much interference with development in center and corridors with that little bit of a break. But with pilot, again, pilot programs, you tend to find adjustments that need to be made. So based off of feedback from the center and corridor interim ordinance and from feedback from the ongoing center and corridor study, we are proposing some modifications to what that interim ordinance permitted, which we will go over. First and foremost, we are moving away from floor area ratio, or FAR. Basically, throughout our code, we're trying to move away from it. It can be a complicated calculation. It doesn't necessarily regulate what we need to regulate, and we already have building coverage, setbacks, height, and other regulations that regulate the built form. So with moving away from FAR, the proposal is to have no maximum FAR within the center and corridor zones. However, we are proposing implementation of minimum FAR. So for District Center, that minimum FAR currently is 0.5, and in the Employment Center, it is 1. The graphics generally show what FAR looks like. So for an FAR of 1, if you're doing a single-story building, that building needs to cover the entire site. 2-story covers half the site. So that's just simple representation of what that can look like on the lot. We are also, with the moving away from FAR and having a maximum FAR, we are adjusting our bonuses. There is currently an FAR bonus for affordable housing, appropriate parking, and public art that gives that bonus in FAR. So we kept those same bonus structures. We just changed it to a 15-foot height bonus instead of having an FAR bonus. These do not stack. If you do public art and affordable housing, you don't get 30 additional feet. 15 feet is that maximum bonus that you would receive. We're also adjusting parking. So we are removing minimum parking within the center and corridor zones. We are maintaining the maximum ratio of 4 stalls per 1,000 gross square feet. But again, just removing that minimum parking within centers and corridors. Additionally, we are removing the minimum parking in all downtown zones. Currently, the majority of downtown has a no parking overlay already, but there are portions on the outskirts of downtown that do have parking requirements still. This proposal will remove all parking requirements within downtown zones. And following with the transit-oriented development, pedestrian-oriented development, we are making adjustments to drive-through allowances. We are not permitting drive-throughs in our CC1 zone. That's our highest intensity center and corridor zone. They are permitted in CC2 and CC3 unless there is a designated pedestrian street. This also directly implements the South Logan TOD plan because that plan calls for no drive-throughs within the South Logan sub-area. By removing this allowance in CC1, drive-throughs aren't permitted throughout all of the future zoning within the project area. Finally is the proposed changes for our higher intensity residential zones, and really we're talking about open space. So we are not looking at open space standards for our lower intensity residential zones, R1 or R2. Those have separate minimum requirements, separate standards. It's a separate code section. What we are talking about is our higher intensity residential zones, RMF and RHD. The graphics on the screen just show a representation of what we typically see in these zones. In RMF, we're typically envisioning garden apartments or townhomes. In RHD, it's a bit more of an urban form, podium style, larger housing types, apartments. So again, that just to contextualize what we're talking about when we're looking at the open space on these housing types. So first, we did make some changes to just the standards of open space. We changed the language from outdoor space to open space. Currently, the code already allows indoor space like fitness centers to count towards what is called outdoor space right now. So we just changed the language to make it clear that it can be indoor or outdoor as long as you're following those standards. We reorganized it just to be a bit more user-friendly and basically just to make a bit more sense. It was a bit confusing how it was organized. We are clarifying that you can mix and match private and open space, but if you're providing private space, it needs to meet the minimum. This is to avoid any unusable balconies or private open spaces. We're also adding pet areas as a permitted amenity for open space, and we're making sure that the open space must meet ADA standards for accessible design. For open space, that basically means some sort of pathway or ground that can be navigated. This was our objective way to ensure that the open space can actually be reached, it's usable. So again, that really just means a pathway for the open space. The other change to open space is the minimum requirements. So before our housing work and building opportunity and choices for all, which is in 2023, we had these regulations that are on the left, 48 square feet for RMF and RHD. During our housing work, we heard comments that individuals were wanting more open space, more access to open space. So we kind of made a wholesale change on all of our open space standards for lower intensity and higher intensity residential uses. And that is what's on the right, the existing regulation. So we did change RMF, we did not change RHD standards. Since then, we have heard that this can be a barrier to feasible projects. That's a bit too much open space to actually make the types of housing we envision in RMF be able to be built. So the proposal is to basically strike a middle ground. So this is what is in the draft. First and foremost, the proposal is to change open space minimums to be based off the type of unit. So unit size, essentially. A studio requires less open space than, say, a two-bedroom apartment, with the idea that a studio is typically going to have less people there than a two-bedroom apartment. We're also striking a middle ground between having less open space and more open space, and we are making adjustments to the RHD code as well, upping it in some instances, again, because we heard there's a desire to have open space, but we just need to find the right size. So the proposal is for studios 48 square feet per unit, 75 square feet for one bedroom, 150 for 2+ bedroom, and if you're doing common open space, since it kind of adds on to each other, there's a bit of a reduction of what is required. Of note, in the residential high density, for any sites that are 20,000 square feet or less, what we're calling infill sites, you get less required open space. Again, this is infill. We want to incentivize infill development, and those do tend to be more of an urban form. And also, if you're already around services and amenities, you may not need as much open space on the residence that you live in. One other proposal is to provide an incentive or a bonus for proximity to a public park. I will apologize. I noticed today that the tracking sheet has the wrong numbers. 200 feet, this is what we originally discussed. However, in every workshop we've been talking about lately, these are the numbers we've been talking about. That is what's in the code draft. The tracking sheet is just a little outdated. So the proposal is for residential units with a continuous pedestrian route from a parcel edge to a public park within 800 feet are not required to have more than 36 square feet. That 800 feet is about 2.5 blocks, or 1.5 larger blocks. And there does need to be, for arterials, there needs to be a crossing to make sure that people can access that park safely. So So we did receive some comments that were forwarded on to the Plan Commission. One was about concerns over a bus stop at Indiana in Division. This bus stop is not within the project area, and we're not clear how the proposed code changes impact that specific location. However, it was a response to an email notifying people about the hearing, so we felt it appropriate to include in the package. We also received some concerns over public safety not being addressed in the code proposals, and I do believe the individuals who submitted the comments are here today to add some additional information after this presentation. So again, we are here today for a public hearing to provide a recommendation to City Council on the proposals. So there's just a few options put on this slide. The first is to recommend approval of the South Logan TOD implementation code package in full. So that's all 5 proposals. I will note that once we start processing City Council, each code proposal is going to be its own ordinance. So if you want, for clarity, you can recommend approval if you want separately, just to fall in line. There will be 5 different findings of fact. It won't conflict either way if you do it as a whole or separately. You can also recommend approval with modifications, or you can recommend denial of the entire code package or individual code packages. And with that, just a reminder of how people can stay engaged in the process. After this public hearing, we will forward the recommendation of Plan Commission to City Council, and we will ultimately have a public hearing at City Council. Members of the public can still submit written comment and testify either tonight or at the City Council hearing as well.
Thank you, Casey.
Any questions?
I'll say this has been a great process, and enjoyed seeing it evolve over the months and months and months. So before we move to public testimony, are there any questions for Casey or other staff? Commissioner Linhart.
Thank you.
Speak into the microphone. So.
Thank you. Is there a minimum size for a public park? What's defined as a public park? Can it be like a 10-foot square park?
So our parks are defined by our Parks Department, and they're not gonna have a little pocket be a, well.
Actually, there are public parks in Rockwood neighborhood that are very small.
The Olmsted Triangles.
Yes, the Olmsted Triangles.
So I
They
had
are.
this thought this week, too.
They are, that's an excellent point, because they are very small. They are grassy areas within a triangle, effectively with a bench.
So we can take a look also to see if it's just park-owned property versus what they call out as a park. I'm unsure of that, but then we can just verify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Liaison Winkus.
Is there any way that we could exclude such as the triangle, sorry. Is there any way we could exclude things such as the triangle parks? Because that's really not, I think, what was meant. And I didn't think about it earlier, so it's a really good thing to bring up. But it certainly wouldn't serve the purpose. It may have a bench, it may not. And it's the size literally of, well, it's just a triangle. So I don't think that's what was meant. So if that could be modified to exclude those, I think that might be good.
For clarity, if there's a desire to make that modification or amendment, we'd recommend maybe a size, since I'm unsure if you necessarily have a list of all of the small parks you'd want to exclude, but if there is a specific size you'd want to exclude, doesn't apply for anything less than X size, that would help us make that amendment appropriately.
Maybe something that would be useful there is while we're doing public comment and maybe deliberating, if one of the staff can do a square footage size of, there's 4 triangle parks in Rockwood neighborhood. Just getting understanding those size to give us some context on what we're thinking about.
They're also called micro parks. So you might be able to approach it that way instead of 4 micro parks known as the Olmsted Triangle Parks. So instead of going to square footage, maybe that would cover it?
I have a question. Are these parks, is one of them next to Hutton Elementary?
Yes.
Yes.
So when I look at the parks layer on the map, in our GIS layers, those do not show, they may be owned by parks, but they are not designated as parks in our GIS layers. So we would, I think, generally not consider those to be parks if a proposal were to come forward.
Parks Department
Parks
considers them
Department
parks.
says they are.
Well, I
I
don't
mean, they're all
see it,
signed as parks and,
I don't see it designated on their map.
They have signs on them that say parks. So, and the Parks Department takes care of them.
For reference, we verified that those are about 2,500 square feet.
Not very big.
So maybe, yeah, a number bigger than that.
okay. Any other questions for Casey?
Is there
Commissioner Edwards?
Is there a provision for, with regards to the, I'm curious about the safety. So if you're at a property that's farthest away from a park and it needs to have a sidewalk, does the developer pay for the and there isn't a sidewalk, can the developer pay for that street improvement? And is there a mechanism for that? Or would that simply preclude the development from meeting the requirement?
So as development comes in, they're typically required to provide sidewalk adjacent to the property they're developing unless there's some specific reason where it's not appropriate. As far as a developer adding sidewalk for the entire stretch, I don't think we necessarily have precedent for that, but I don't think it would necessarily be precluded. We have to go through the process to verify. I don't think we'd be opposed to more sidewalk.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Casey. With that, we will go to public comment. I currently have one person, well, 2 people signed up for public comment. John and Cindy Bryant. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for the investment in the South Logan neighborhood. Some of the concerns I want to bring forward is the night before the ribbon cutting on the new Trent Avenue Bridge, which took years to build, the copper was torn out of the bridge, the lighting where the foot traffic is, and the custom-made steel plates were thrown into the river. It was spray painted, however you want to, vandalized. And that morning before the ribbon cutting with all the dignitaries, everybody rushed around, spray painted it, covered it with cardboard, and made it look nice. Since that time, the copper's never been replaced. The bridge doesn't light up on top. It is a pedestrian road from Union Gospel Mission or other areas of what I just call transient traffic. Underneath the bridge now, where the new sidewalk has been put in, the blacktop is basically a living quarters for 3 to 8 people. But we watch every day people defecating in the river, dumping their garbage in the river, and it's been very difficult. We had a robbery on site at Riverwalk just a few weeks ago. They took the cell phone of the person they robbed the building keys from, and we were able to track the person using public transit to get around and get to the north end. So we interviewed our Metro police officer, and he says it's very common. The Metro buses are used to get away and then to move around town very swiftly. Last week on that as well, we don't have a lot of well-lit area in that South Logan neighborhood. So by Joya, I represent Noli Brewhouse. We're kind of a nonprofit. We work with 120 nonprofits a year. We have a pub, we have a brewery, but we consider ourselves a community servant organization and business. Within our property, we have 2 churches with youth. Within a few hundred feet, we have a youth gymnastic facility. We have Joya with children. And just last week, one of my staff members was hospitalized for secondhand contact with some type of smoked chemical substance in our bathroom. Obviously, her parents are very concerned. She had an IV. She's going to be okay. But that was simply asking somebody to leave the property. So my concern in the South Logan neighborhoods, I do appreciate the investment, but the movement of what we see in prostitution, sex trafficking, drug use and crime, vandalism, that has gone up substantially in the last 6 months is kind of at an epidemic and safety concern proportion. So all I'm asking is that we're talking about children, visitors, my staff. I have a list that goes on and on. It's really difficult. So what I don't want to see is more fences going up in business, more security guards, and building more barriers between us. There has to be some compromises where we can preserve public safety, be empathetic, compassionate, and accountable for those you're trying to take care of, and be a healthy society. And I just would like to see that happen with the South Logan neighborhood. But be aware the buses that you're creating, they're transferring people around, and they're jeopardizing those who are safe, who would like to use the bus for safety with their children or getting to work. The bridges are becoming a pedestrian pathway that make it quick from Union Gospel Mission or other areas to go up to Mission Park, behind Joya, and then hit Trent into the University District. It's really, I haven't seen it. I've been there 12 and a half years, and this is like nothing I've ever seen. So I just want to put that out there, that safety is a big part of this plan, and I hope we can somehow put it in there. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Thanks.
That was the only public comment that I saw signed up. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? If you can come up and say your name. Yes, there is a sign-up sheet. You can fill that out after you do your testimony.
So I'm actually here on behalf of STA. So I'll just read, we have a letter prepared, so I'm just going to read it here. I could also send you a copy by email.
What's your name?
Oh yeah, my name is Lucas Yanni. I'm an associate planner with STA. And then I worked with Carl to make this statement here. So I'm writing to confirm Spokane Transit Authority's continued support for the South Logan Transit-Oriented Development Project. So land use and transit are inherently linked, and by updating these development regulations to further support TOD, STA and our regional partners have laid a solid foundation for transit in the Logan neighborhood for years to come. The City Line, our region's first bus rapid transit, or BRT line, is approaching its 1-year anniversary of its service launch in July 2023, on my birthday, July 15th, actually. And to date has carried over 600,000 passengers. City Line is now running at 7.5-minute frequency at peak hours of operation, a frequency that's been unmatched by any other route in the system, and allows for great flexibility for riders getting to and from the neighborhood and to transfer to other routes. The service has been celebrated as a major step forward in developing high-quality transit in the Spokane region. And the City Line serves the South Logan sub-area with 4 major stop pairs. I'm sure you're all aware of that based on the maps. And much of the sub-area is within a quarter-mile radius of a stop. So the South Logan TOD project would help the city leverage the success of the City Line and allow for much-needed growth in the area. And with the City Line as its backbone and these new development regulations, the South Logan sub-area has a solid foundation to support TOD, helping to create a more pedestrian-friendly neighborhood with a mix of uses, which can be a model for future developments across the city on BRT and other high-performance transit corridors. And that's it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Colleen Fuchs, and I'm the Executive Director at Joya Child and Family Development on Superior Street near Novi. And we've certainly been in touch with John and Cindy about security and safety for our families in the neighborhood. Many of our families do take public transportation to get to our building, to our site. They are all families with children under the age of 3. And we too are struggling with safety in our in our building on our site like we never have before. We've been there for 2 years now, a new building. We have lots of green space. It is park-like. I don't know if you've seen it or been down there, but we wanted to make sure that that was incorporated into our program for our families. It's very calming for children, and yet not when they don't feel safe, unfortunately. We have had to put up a rather expensive fence to guard our parking lot for our staff who come and go throughout the day to provide home-based services. And we are constantly struggling with people entering the building who are not invited guests, who are rather frightening to our families, sometimes following our families into the building and needing to figure out how we provide security. So again, I know this isn't about a safety plan per se, but safety really has to be part of the consideration for every developmental phase, it seems right now. And building our building just 2 years ago, it came up a little bit, but wasn't a huge part of the planning process. So I just want to echo what John said. I really hope that is something that shows up in planning meetings and is a topic that's discussed. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any additional public comment? Is there anyone online? Okay, hearing none, I will close public testimony and we will move on to deliberations. Before we make a motion, we discussed whether or not to take these as individual items or just take the package as a whole. Is there anyone that would like to take this section by section? Or are we good to just go through the entire package?
I mean, I would, but I think I'm probably in the minority on that one, so.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend for approval the South Logan TOD implementation codes as presented in the city staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Okay, with that, we begin deliberation. And one thing I will begin with is I looked up, because I thought of another small park. Dutch Jake Park is in West Central. It's a relatively small park. And so I looked up its size, and it is 0.78 acres. And so 2,500 square feet. And I did look on the Spokane's park list, and they did not list the Olmsted Parks
Yeah.
on their map. But Dutch Jake Park is listed, and I think of that as a really small park to really rely on that open space requirement. So I think maybe putting a limitation on the size of the park would be actually beneficial.
Just going to point out, I looked up on the City Spokane Parks map. They designate those triangles as parkways, in addition to a few other locations like the Parkway on Manitou Boulevard. Those are designated as parkways, not parks. So,
Good to know.
So, comments, thoughts? Commissioner Banks.
So two things, if I may, or should I separate the things?
Well, you can
I'm
cover
happy
both.
to do whatever the president would prefer. Firstly, I'd like to address the public comment with respect to public safety. And I think, first of all, I appreciate you all showing up, and I've heard many different varieties of those similar complaints coming from that similar area. So it is a huge issue. And I think separating that from the action that's taken place tonight, I don't want those who have those concerns to think that those concerns are not being considered. at the city or even being considered by this body. However, a lot of those specific items that you bring up are well outside of the purview of a planning effort per se. So those are more code enforcement issues or law enforcement issues. And this plan is more focused on the built environment and, where buildings are, what the uses are, how large they are, et cetera. So I wanted to just acknowledge that and say that I think as much as everyone up here would like to contribute to that, the increase in safety in the area in some way in this plan, I'm just not sure that we have a great deal of those tools at our disposal. And so I didn't want anyone who's commented on those to think that we're not listening or we're not hearing you or that those comments aren't being folded into the larger conversation. We just don't have a lot of tools with which to address them in this particular exercise that we're in right now. I think there's lots of other opportunities within the city to have those conversations, and I would encourage you to continue to raise your voice because it is a really important issue, and that can't be forgotten, and not that I think it is being forgotten, but the more that the decision makers continue to hear from the community on those things, the better. My second point is in relation to the open space question. I did not see fit to put through a proposed amendment because I think I'm on an island on this particular issue. But I was in discussion with some colleagues of mine that are in the commercial general construction business talking about the added cost that some of these open space requirements add to a multifamily building. We have, on this body, been racking our brain for a long time on why housing is so expensive and what we can do to drive housing costs down. And we've rightly focused a lot on supply, and we've focused on a lot of other things, but then at the same time, we go and we introduce or adjust or miss the opportunity to eliminate regulations that materially add to the cost of housing. This is $15,000 to $20,000 per unit. That is not insignificant. That is a very significant thing. And please do not confuse this with me saying that open space is bad or that it should not be built or it is not important. I feel that it absolutely is important. It's important for people to have access to the outdoors and to fresh air and to all of those things. I'm just not sure what we're doing requiring it and requiring the addition of substantial extra cost to each one of these housing units when we're in the middle of a housing crisis. So that's why I wanted to split them up and so that I could specifically not vote for that particular item, but I understand the group's position on that, and so I will cede the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Bank. Commissioner Patterson.
I did want to at least point out that on the open space requirement that the vote today will be to reduce the amount of required open space from what it is existing today. So if anything, we're taking a step forward on that. So
I would just counter by saying we're missing an opportunity to eliminate it.
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. I did ask the question. Obviously, we got to the heart of it originally, thinking about the folks who might fall within this geographic limit where they would not have access or where the park would be their only option. I think thinking about it in terms of wanting to meet the needs of those folks, it would be helpful to know how many households are kind of in that boundary, potentially to think about what that would mean in terms of their access to open space if they weren't in that park area. Does that make sense?
I guess my thought on that question is that we can't know how many households there are because this is all potential development. So this would be incentivizing adding more housing units close to the parks. So, and it does only apply to those two specific zoned areas of RHD and residential multifamily, although there are other places that that type of development can occur in the city as well.
This is a question. Is there any way, and I don't know the answer to it, in the findings of fact, since it's not within our purview to do anything about the concerns of the issues brought up by the gentleman from No Lie, et cetera, is there any way of saying in the findings of fact that we share the concern and hope that the appropriate agencies can take some action on this? Is there some way of recognizing it, is what I'm saying?
I think if Plan Commission wants to include that as a finding, that would be fine.
It would at least be some recognition that we are concerned as well, even though it isn't within the purview to do anything about that today.
Is anyone opposed to staff drafting something that essentially states our concerns, and then I can approve it when I approve the findings of fact? Commissioner?
It's not that I'm opposed to it, but it does feel a little bit outside our purview. I would at least want it to include reference to, the impact of increased development and the hopeful outcome of transit-oriented development in addressing safety issues in a neighborhood.
Commissioner Shook?
Thank you. I'm wondering, in reference to Jesse's comment about the cost of adding open spaces, I'm all for open spaces, especially where children are involved, but maybe it could be part of the apartments, or could be open space balconies, and then maybe the upper floors would be non-balconied areas.
Balconies are already included in the allowance for an open space.
Oh, yes, right, but I'm saying, now what were you referring to that would add an additional 20,000?
The balconies themselves, or the open space, or dedicating common space within the building that could otherwise be charged revenue on any of the above.
Okay, so I think we need open space. However, in regards to just balconies, perhaps we can suggest that not each apartment have a balcony, maybe after so many feet, maybe after the first 6 levels or whatever, there would be no balconies.
That's already allowed. That's
Something
allowed.
like that.
Commissioner Williams? Commissioner Edwards, did you have?
I'd just like to speak in support of what Mary suggested and Ryan seconded, that we have a finding of fact regarding the safety issues, just because it is a forum, but it should include, and if staff could prepare that, I think that would be ideal, but it should include some information about, we're supporting more density, more people, but there are safety issues currently in the neighborhood today, which have gotten worse in recent times, and we would like that to be noted for the city council and then whoever else is going to consider this.
Can I just clarify, maybe get everybody to nod their heads, but I think what I'm hearing is include a finding that expresses concern about the safety issues that have been raised, and perhaps references elements of the plan that we hope will address or improve the safety situation by bringing more people there who can then, contribute to a safer situation or a safer environment. Is that a fair summary of what I think we're hearing?
Okay, I would like to ask that we hear suggestions. We're including that in a facts and findings statement, that maybe perhaps we should hear from our presenters today and find out what are some of the suggestions that they would make for safety, because they know how it would affect their area.
We already have that in the written public comment. That probably can be used as
Yeah, we can
a
refer to
degree of
written
basis.
comments.
My concern, their concern too, is as these improvements are put in this TOD, what you want to make sure is that they aren't negated by the issues that are facing them now. So yes, more people can help the situation, but if the situation isn't dealt with, it might be detrimental to the development that the city's hoping will go forth. So I think there's 2 ways of looking at it, both. Maybe if it's dealt with correctly, it will help change the situation, but also the way it is right now, it might leave the impact of the changes, might lessen them and not be as fulsome as we want them to be. So I think mentioning both would be good.
Do you have sufficient direction?
I think so.
Okay. Commissioner Linhart?
One more thought. Is there any opportunity to recommend the investigating approaches to addressing public safety through things like crime prevention through environmental design, or just to recommend incorporation of safety concerns or community-based solutions to come with some sort of solutions, not just raising the problem?
I mean, I think if we stray too far into recommendations, I mean, that there is some language in the plan that I think deals with some of this, but ultimately, we're implementing the plan that was approved and adopted. So I think we should probably avoid getting too far into adding recommendations on here that aren't directly reflected in the plan.
Okay, so we'll get something in there to reflect the concerns and, okay. Moving on to other items, Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if Commissioner Banks' statement is a foregone conclusion that it's off the table. I understand we have a motion on the floor right now, but to consider them separately, consider this issue of open space separately, because in my experience with 2002 North Monroe, that's a 46-unit multifamily property, and adding balconies would have cost $1.1 million extra, right? So, I don't know all the details about what other open space is on the site, but they have a gym in there, and that's market driven in order to attract tenants. It's not, necessarily code driven. But if the pro forma won't work, then you won't get the construction. So actually, I support what Commissioner Bank is saying, and I was just wondering if we could vote on that, so at least go on record.
We can vote on it. Since we have everything, we're looking at everything together, we can still make amendments to any part of the sections that are in there. So if there's a way that you could formulate a motion on that, we could.
I mean, I would love to.
Entertain a vote.
I'm happy to hear the support from Commissioner Edwards. I just don't know that there's sufficient support from the rest of the body to even spend any time trying to bring that up, frankly. It's become quite clear throughout these discussions that I've been sort of on an island, and so I'm happy to have some company on the island, but I think we are.
Well, I would just add, this doesn't preclude open space. This just says it's not required.
Totally. 100%.
I think the market will drive it to some degree, but adding $1.1 million to that property on Monroe would have made it impossible to build.
Thank you.
So, before we do that, Commissioner Shook, so I have a question. Were they not required to provide, balconies are not a requirement as long as they provide sufficient open space to meet the code requirements, and the code requirements are being relaxed. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm saying that they added the gym, and I don't know all the details of that pro forma, but I'm just citing that balcony issue as an example of a cost prohibitive thing. And in that building, there's a nice gym, but it's not large, and that's the only common area.
So there's no external common area at all?
It's on a large site, but eventually there'll be another building on that site, so.
So I thought that we're having balconies, that would be an option, but my thought about open spaces would be playground room, for outdoor playground room for children on the property. That's what I was thinking that we could separate and call open spaces, or however we would designate that. It wouldn't necessarily need to be on a balcony or a park 2 blocks away, just something close to the property or on the property where children could gather and have fun.
Just because there was a question about what open space was required on that specific property, it is located in the CC2 zoning, so that doesn't have any open space requirements for residential because of the nature of that zone.
Is that still true? We're only looking at RMF and RHD as far as open space requirements. So CC2 still does not have an open space requirement.
Correct.
I don't even know how to comment to that. Greg has a comment for everything. Well, that's interesting. But I was trying to differentiate between, I think of CC2 as being slightly more urban, slightly denser because it's in that centers and corridors area. I tend to think of RHD and RMF as being directly adjacent to centers and corridors or the downtown zones typically, although it could be, we can have pockets of RMF and RHD anywhere. I'm personally in favor of open space, but I'm also strongly in favor of affordability, and so I'm trying to reconcile the challenges between the two. I think is trying to create a healthy living environment. Some level of open space is very beneficial. You look at the urban housing blocks that were created to provide affordable housing that didn't have any open space, and those were abject failures in a lot of cases when that HUD created. So I don't know quite how to balance that.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask whether they were abject failures because of the lack of open space or they were abject failures because of a litany of other considerations.
Probably one factor out of many.
I do agree also with the concept of reducing the requirements that for building. That's why, I do support the park exemption, although I think it could go farther as well. I'm not sure that we would have more than a 50% support for eliminating the requirement completely, but I do think taking steps toward reducing the requirements and the regulation on building is an important step as we consider all of these changes.
Well, I would say unless we're going to have a motion, we probably need to consider this item done. Although I do want to come back to the park. So
is there a way we can separate, out the balconies, even though requirement or?
there's no requirement for a balcony.
So we don't have to
So
have it in.
there's no reason to separate it because they're already, the developer has the flexibility of how they deliver the open space. Only a certain percentage of it can be common space. Or the other way around. A certain percentage could be private space.
Oh, yes, that private.
100% can be private or common, or you can mix and match. The percentage caps are for specific amenity types, so pet area or fitness center can't exceed 50% of the amenities being provided, but it can be either all private, all common.
So the
Pick and
common-
choose.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
So the common space, what is that? Is that all the areas, regardless of how they designate it outside of the inside gym?
So common space is any of the open space that is accessible by all residents. So private open space, balconies, patios can only be accessed by the resident or their visitors. common open space is accessed by all residents. So it can be an outdoor area, it can be a fitness center, an indoor community center, rooftop deck. It can be a wide variety of options, but everyone has equal access to it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
I'd just like to acknowledge Commissioner Banks' comments about costs and things to be concerned about, but at this point in time, we haven't had a good discussion of that issue in the past, and we are moving forward in terms of reducing the open space requirements with these changes and allowing more density and more units to be built on a chunk of land, which are positive things for cost. So I guess I'm not ready to support a change on that today, but I would welcome a discussion on that and some other items as well that may relate to cost and affordability. I'm still a little bit hung up on you can't have a garage underneath your house. And I think the more that we can simplify things and make it easier for developers and builders and let the market drive things and not have too much complexity built into our code, I think that's a step forward. But it's rather hard to do that as a member of the Plan Commission because we have all these, well, this makes sense and this makes sense. But when you look at the overall pattern, it is quite complex. And so anyway, so for where we're at today, I think what's been proposed by staff is a good step forward.
Okay. Commissioner Patterson.
Oh, I was just going to similarly comment that if there isn't a motion, that we should just move on to further discussion at this point.
Okay, I'm going to come back to parks for a minute. So it's good to see that the Olmsted parks are defined as parkways and not parks. So that precludes them. I did look at like Dutch Jake Park, and that's 0.78 acres, not a huge space. I'm just looking at parks around the city. Typically, park sizes are, for some of the smaller parks, we're 2 to 3 acres or above. Just looking at those parks that cover basically half a city block. Does anyone feel the need to provide some minimum size criteria for a park? The smallest park I could think of is Dutch Jake Park. Although there is that Poly Park.
Polly
Judd.
Polly Judd.
That's also very small.
Well, and I mean, I guess I would throw in another complicating factor too, in that Manitoba Boulevard being a parkway is not considered as part of this. And I personally have recreated substantially within the middle of that parkway and very much enjoyed that open space, and that does not qualify. And so it's starting to get into this morass a little bit. I think we need to go fully one way or fully the other. I don't know that we can parse it in a way that's going to be equal and equivalent across the city and inclusive of all of the open space options.
I just did some quick math in concerning Dutch Jake Park. If with just assuming all of the units were required to do 48 square feet of space, and this is not even considering that this park exception allows them to just bump it down to 38. If it was a 30-unit building and you combined all of that space together to be a common space, it would still only be 0.03 acres. So a 0.78 acre is still substantially larger than the common space that would be available just for that specific development. Obviously, it's also shared by other people in the neighborhood, but 0.03 acres is very small. So I wouldn't be concerned about designating, or including Dutch Jake Park, and I wouldn't want to specifically exclude it either. That just feels a little mean.
And I would add, I'm just looking at it on the map here, it has a playground and a basketball court. I mean, that's park. That gets you your outdoor activity. That's perfectly sufficient, completely irrespective of the acreage.
And you said that's
.78 acres.
So that's almost an acre.
Yes. 35,000 square feet or so.
Rather
Commissioner
than-
Weinhardt.
Thank you. Rather than specifying a minimum size, would it make sense to specify amenities, facilities? Is that too, sorry, tricky? You make a face.
I thought about that, but I think it would be very difficult to do. I mean, we don't generally specify specific amenities required on the site. We just qualify, open green space qualifies as an open space. So even a parkway would likely, I mean, essentially that's what a developer could provide on site. So if no one feels the need to provide a minimum park size, then let's move on from that item and discuss anything else that people feel needs to be discussed.
How is findings of fact included? Is that just a separate vote at the end to include something about the issues in the TOD area? Or is that just, having said that,
We're
Director
including it by,
Gardner can take it from there?
yeah, we just did it by consensus.
Okay. So just curious if
Yeah.
we needed to take separate action.
No, there won't be a specific vote required for that.
Okay.
So. Okay, any other discussion items? Okay. I would just, before we take a vote, I just want to thank Casey and the rest of the planning department for all the work that they've done. I know this has been a long process and a lot of work, a lot of outreach. And it's just one more step to completing this project. It will be good to see the actual zoning rezones come through here later in the fall. It's my only, I guess, concern, it's not really a concern, observation, I'll call it, is, so much of this has been focused on the South Logan area, but it actually has a pretty dramatic impact throughout the city because of the changes to centers and corridors and RMF and RHD. That I think that maybe in some ways, and I know you've done a lot of outreach, but in some ways maybe it did fly under the radar for some of the groups that might have otherwise commented on it. So, but looking at the public outreach that's occurred, I think you did everything you could to get the word out there. So I'm going to be supportive of this, and I think it would be important for us to watch the potential impact that open space requirements have. Hopefully all of this will be positive impact, but are there any developers that say, I just can't do it with these open space requirements, and maybe we can revisit that in the future. So I will be supporting this, but thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to echo that comment as well. It's well known that I've had a huge hang up with the open space issue, but beyond that, this is an amazing plan. I think it genuinely does move the needle. I think the ability to influence a lot of other areas around the city in a really substantial way is amazing. And so I just want to echo Greg and President Francis, excuse me, in thanking staff for all their diligent work on this, because it really is an excellent plan. And despite my hang up on that one issue, I'll be voting positively as well.
Commissioner Patterson.
And I'd like to add on to that I think that this process has been a testament to the planning department's flexibility and understanding that our development code is continuously changing and addressing community needs, and that we have opportunities to make changes and updates throughout, every year. Just because something has changed doesn't mean that it's going to be that way for the next 2 decades. We do hope that we have substantial impact on the next couple decades, but also if it's not working, that it can be readdressed. And I think this process really showed that.
Any further comments? I'm going to add one final thing. I do like the fact that we're simplifying the form-based code and changing that. We'll see whether or not it can be adopted elsewhere. I know some people are not fully in favor of that. Fully.
That's another issue for another day.
So with that final comment, let's do a roll call vote. Ryan?
Greg Francis,
Aye.
Ryan Patterson,
Aye.
Jesse Bank,
Aye.
Carol Shook,
Aye.
Tim Williams,
Aye.
David Edwards,
Aye.
Amber Lenhart.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you all, commissioners, and thank you, everybody, for your work. We are adjourned.